Okay, now we went ahead and installed these sprockets. Now we need to make sure that these things are in line. Okay, so there's a couple different ways they need to be in line. They need to be in line like this. So this right here, the face of this should actually broadcast a straight line, and it should be lined up with that. But also too, we want to make sure that these aren't like this, and very importantly, and it's sometimes hard to really even consider, but where these are in relationship to each other this way. Okay, so what we're going to do is actually get rid of this angular stuff first. And how we can do that is we can take a reference point right here. We have a level essentially, and what we're going to do is see where this is in relationship to the level, and then compare it to what we actually have over here. Okay, and it already looks like this is a little different, and we'll move this level here, and it looks like the unit is a little far off. So I'm going to look at this a little closer. It looks like my bubble's almost touching this line. Actually, it looks like my cart here is rocking, which is not going to necessarily help me out. But right here, it looks like the bubble's just about touching that secondary line. And then over here, it looks like the bubble is not even close to that secondary line. And if I want to move it to make it there, I need to essentially get this to move in this direction. Okay? So if I need to get this to move in this direction, that means that I'm probably going to have to unbolt some stuff over here and actually add some shim in order to get that up. So let's go ahead and jump into that. So obviously I'm going to have to find the wrench that corresponds with this. Okay, and we're going to loosen these things up. And what we're going to do for the purposes of this is we're just going to do a little bit of trial and error here. Okay, we're just using a general level. It's not necessarily going to be super duper easy to figure out what we have. But what we're going to do is get it as close as we can. So I'm going to grab some shims here out of my toolbox, and I'm going to open them up. Looks like these here are 30 thousandths or so shims. We can measure them if we want to really know. Yep, they're 30 thousandths shim, right on the money. And based upon how far that was, I'm going to go ahead and grab, we're going to do about 3 each. So we're going to about 90 thousandths. And what I'm going to do is stick this underneath of here, sliding those little slots around my bolt here, make sure that it's pushed all the way in, and then I'm going to take this and make sure that it's snug back up. Now look, if you don't tighten this up, obviously you have some movement there, so tightening this up is a very important thing to do. Okay, so I have that tight right there. I'm just going to verify that I'm actually tight in the front, which it does look like, yes. Tight in the front. So now I'm going to repeat the process, and I'm going to go over here and I'm going to get a reference again just to make sure that nothing moved. And my bubble's touching that second thin line. And then now, wow, I'm a lot closer, okay, but it still looks like I'm going to have to move over a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and make another adjustment. Probably, based upon how much it moved that time, just go ahead and put one more shim in under each foot, okay? So you want to make sure that these are even because you want this entire side to move up at exactly the same amount. So as these come up, I'm going to slide those in, and then I'm going to make sure that this is brought down tight again. Okay, so that's nice and snug. Let's go back and do the same process. Now, if you don't have this type of level, this is actually fine too. This is a square with a level in it. So you can actually use this pretty much the same way. I like this one particularly because I actually have a couple other marks. So if the first one is out of level, then I have something else to actually reference. So I do appreciate that. And it looks like we are pretty much exactly where it is. So this little level method right here has really helped us out getting that all straightened out. So now that that's straightened out, that we know that these two drive sprockets are actually in a line with each other this way, so there's no twisting of the chain as it's going across. Now the next thing that we're going to have to check is we're going to have to check to see about where they are in and out. Now, we've got to be careful. This is a great surface to go off of, going from this surface to this surface. And they look about the same. However, we should really measure because we want these surfaces and these surfaces lined up. So I'm going to measure here and here. And it looks like I have about 725. And here, oh, I have about 600, so about an 1/8 inch difference. So these surfaces really aren't good for me to measure off of. So we're not going to measure off that surface, and we're going to try to get these here. I'm going to take this as a straight edge, and I'm going to put my fingers here and pull this up against this surface. And the whole objective is to find that spot where this is touching both sides and is in a true representation of where this line is in, as far as infinity, and it looks like it is not lining up appropriately with this sprocket. Now, I can move not only this sprocket, sometimes it gets a little challenging with the taper lock, but I know I can loosen this up and move the shaft, so in this case, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go over here and actually find where my set screws are, and I'm going to break these set screws loose. I don't have to back the screws out very far, but I am going to break them loose. And that is just a standard shaft collar. This one here is a little different. We're going to break this one loose, and it is actually like a cam lock. So not only do I break this loose, but these two mating surfaces are actually a cam, so I need to make sure that they're disconnected so that I can make that work. Now that the shaft should be movable, now I can do the same thing, use this straight edge, making sure that this is touching all the way across that surface before I compare it to my other surface. And wow, I did pretty good. I'm going to tap this out a little bit, and I'm going to keep going until it appears that I have exactly what I want. Checking and rechecking, and it looks good. Now the other thing that really looks good on this as well is that I'm not seeing any angular distortion this way, so I don't have to make an adjustment here. But if it looks like, well, it looks close, but this surface here and the surface of my sprocket, okay, don't look like they're in line, then I was going to have to do something on an angular basis that way. But in this case, I think I'm in good shape. So without touching anything, I'm going to go ahead and tighten these shaft collars back up so that I can maintain that alignment. This cam lock, I'm going to rotate it until it stops, and then I'm going to snug that up. And now I actually have my alignment, okay? Now that I have my alignment, I can go ahead and put my chain on. Now, earlier in the section, you probably see there's a little formula there for the pitch of the chain and the distance between the center lines and the sprockets and the sizes in order to determine the chain size. That should be calculated at this point. We can get that chain sized up just right, and then we can go ahead and start draping that on there.